And our YouTube audience and Facebook has gone live. We must be doing something right today. We're going to get quickly into the round. I got some amazing people. Some more amazing people might be coming by. Today's topic is, how do you actually survive the ComicVention highway and actually make money? Because some of the traveling things can be very expensive. They can cut into your profits. We're going to talk about all that great stuff. We're going to start off by introducing our great panel, and we're going to be bringing in the dreaded Dinosaur Man creator with us. What's going on? Just check your messenger, James. I mean, Eric. As Brian is introducing himself, I just want you to know something, okay?
Yes.
All right. So go ahead, Brian. Tell them who you are.
Okay, I'm Brian K. Morris, independent publisher, freelance hybrid author, award-winning playwright, and former mortician's assistant. I run Rising Tide Publications, which you can find on Amazon and on Smashwords. I publish comic books and novels.
And how can they find you?
I'm right here. I didn't go anywhere. No, I'm at risingtide.pub. That's risingtide.pub. Also look for this on Facebook. It's a very active page. We put out new content every day. And that's pretty much it. Otherwise, sign up for my newsletter. The new issue is coming out tomorrow. Who knows what I'll be talking about? I don't know. I haven't written it yet.
And we have
Henri Compen. I'm the writer, creator, and producer of Yisun Shin. You can learn more about it at www.yisonshin.com. I apologize. This is the second time I've come on and have not had books in front of me because I'm actually driving while I give you guys this pitch right now. But just letting you guys know, I have been working in I've been working in the comics game now for over a decade. This has been my full-time career for over a decade as well. And I have sold over 100,000 books outside of the direct market, and looking forward to sharing my experiences with you guys in the hopes that it'll help you get to where you're going. So thank you for having me on.
And we have Josh.
Yes, indeed. Hello, everyone. My name is Josh Lyman, or Josh C. Lyman, as I've known myself in the pseudo-professional market. I have been a professional comic book artist as well as a freelancer for just over a decade now. I have worked independently for larger titles as well as smaller ones. I've worked on licensed projects as well as unlicensed projects, but I guess my claim to fame for this, at least for this topic today, is that I have been doing the convention circuit since 2013 full time. So I might have a little bit more insight than most, just given that the highs and lows of good cons and bad cons. And Eric has always been my my good old dreaded dinosaur companion, especially for the last half decade.
And speaking of Eric,
and what a half decade it's been.
Mm-hmm.
Dreaded Dinosaur Man, Eric Hodson, creator of Dreaded Dinosaur Man on
Webtoons.
I look for new updates for that coming soon. And I am working on starting the process for building a book for debut on Indiegogo at the end of fall. I am at Dreaded Dinosaur on all the social media. Follow me on my Instagram, where I am most active, Twitter, Facebook, yada, yada, yada.
At Dreaded Dinosaur.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right, guys. So we got some questions that were asked beforehand. We're going to deal with those to begin the conversation today. First one being, how do you pick the shows you go to?
I'll kick this one off. So I pick the shows. I typically only do 3-day shows now, and that's kind of like how I started. I wanted to go to shows where I knew that there would be a large concentration of people. I don't know how that's going to change in the future, but typically I want to get in a place where I can pitch as many people as possible. And I looked at the shows that were really hot, like Emerald City Comic Con, San Diego Comic Con, and I just kind of went from there. I'm like, I want to try everything. And one thing my buddy Ted Sikora said is he'll try any show once. And I think that's an important thing to look into, is to try everything at least once, because even if you lose the money, you gain the experience. So that's my thought.
Anyone else? Brian, how do you pick your shows?
Well, when I started doing this full time in 2012, I took any show that would have me pretty much. Knowing how far on the bottom I was starting. Now I'm a little bit fussier. I'm now paying attention to the numbers coming through the gate and everything, plus balancing out a number of factors such as guest list, price of the tables, etc. Just a whole lot of stuff, and then just rolling the dice pretty much. Also, how far away is it that I have to travel? Just all the various things I probably should have been paying attention to when I first started.
When
Eric, go for it.
Yeah, when you're just starting out, you really need to stay local. You need to work a few one-day shows, work your local big show as much as you can until you build up enough of an idea of what it takes to do these things before you start venturing out. That's kind of what I tried to do, only when I originally started out back in 2005 with my indie comic book, I pretty much spent every dime that I even was privileged to make. So I learned a lot from bad experiences for that. And anymore now, it's just like, as far as choosing shows, I want to look at show's reputation. They've been going on for quite a while now. If it's a first-year show, is it competing against another show? Is it trying to take business away from another show? And there's certain things you just really can't learn until you've done them once. There's some places that Josh, I'm sure, can help tell the stories of that we'll never go back to. And there's some places that we just can't wait to get back to. And it's for a number of different reasons. But just kind of an awful what the first guy said about, just trying just about any show. You really want to make sure that you've got your logistics covered, because while it would be great to go to a show on the West Coast, do I have somebody to stay with? Do I have travel? Can I afford my travel? Because you want to be able to stay in business. And if you're venturing too far out, the further away from home base, the more expensive the show becomes. So you just really want to make sure that you're at least covering those cost expenses so that you can do the next one and so forth.
I tend to agree with that. Yep. Sorry.
Josh, any feedback on you from your point of view?
Oh, quite a bit. Sorry, I was listening to everyone and processing it and going, yeah, no, that's fair. So I mean, I have to agree with what everyone's been saying so far. In general, when it comes to Comic Cons, a lot of people recently have been asking me this question too, like, hey, I'm trying to get back into shows, or I've never done a Comic Con or a convention before. And I think the number one thing really should be is, hey, start local. And there's so many random factors from, doing your market research to deciding what you want to do. If you want to sell only into comic books, indie comic books, or if you want to just sell only originals, or if you just want to sell painted on, lacquered up product or whatever have you, it's really going to depend on what your voice is. And it's going to take you a little while to figure out what that of your voice is going to be. But I think one of the things that a lot of people end up forgetting is that in order to survive as a artist, you have to build your fandom, and then you have to make sure that your fandom survives, while at the same time making sure that fandom is the fandom that you want. Do you want the temporary, fleeting fans, or do you want the ones that are going to stay there and, hey, they may not get something every single time they see you, but next thing you know, a couple times later, they'll buy an original, or they'll buy way more because times were tough and you were there and you listened and you didn't pressure them. There's little things that a lot of people tend to forget as artists. And I think the number one thing comes down to is that in order to survive, you have to remember it's a business.
Amen. Amen. It is a business. We're not doing this for fun. We're not doing this because, hey, we love it. I mean, those are great factors, and you really kind of need those when the times are tough. You want to be doing something that you enjoy, but you do have to treat it as a business.
But to support what Eric was saying as well about costs and expenses, that's a huge factor. Like, yes, we go. There's some shows that we go to. Like, there's a show.
I definitely agree that you need to treat it as a business. But I would say that if I wasn't having fun doing it, I wouldn't do it. You know, this is just such a large amount of work to put out your stuff. I mean, let's put aside the production of the actual comic. That's only half of the battle. Getting your book done, that's like all your expenses are going into that too, right? And then you got to print up everything, and then you got to go out there and you got to sell it because you're the distribution vessel for this. So I definitely agree that you know, you have to treat it as a business because that's the only way you can turn it into something profitable. But pardon me. The other aspect of it too is that you have to have fun with it because, you know, why else would you do it? I mean, it's not like you're making like a ridiculous amount of money doing this. You have to sacrifice so much, especially in the beginning, you know, in order to get things up and running. And like, you know, what you guys were saying about, you know, sticking to local shows. I mean, it's not like you're working with, you know, an endless pot of money here. You have to take risks, and they have to be calculated ones, you know.
Well, there's also ego bruising too. When we're at a convention and this parade of people walk by your space, and maybe only a couple people come by. So you know that as much as, you know, the expense and the actual physical effort of setting up, being there, breaking down. You know, just keeping your psychic shields up is sometimes a bit of a strain too.
The mental energy.
I like to call that iron skin. I agree with you, Brian, because you have to have an incredible amount of fortitude. You put so much work into these comics, and then people they don't know the work you put in. They don't know the struggle and everything, you know? So I definitely agree with what you're saying there.
And I do want to point this out as someone who's personally been beaten up by a lot of bad shows, having to go there and see your money thrown away and your time thrown away. And I know we've all experienced that. We created something called Greatacon, which actually brings the community together to talk to each other, because so many of us are getting hosed out by bad operators in the comic con circuit. So what do you guys do as far as a new show shows up on your radar? How do you vet it? As a creator, do you reach out to someone you know who's been there? Do you put something out on Facebook? Hey, has anyone been to this show? Or do you have trusted people that you know are in the know in that area that you reach out to? Because I've developed all of that in my time now to stop making bad choices. And I want to put something out here. Remember, what's a good show for Eric and Josh might not be a great show for me. You do have to understand your market. And as someone who has a very comic-heavy table, I have to understand I need to go where comic book fans are. So sometimes that means smaller, middle-sized shows for me where a comic fan is more invested. So I do stress that you need to know your market. Josh is completely right. If you don't know what your market is, you need to do some market research first.
And that's one of those things.
And I think the thing is, too, is there is no such thing as a perfect show. And a show that has been good one year could drastically change the following year. And an example of that is I went to this show in New Orleans last year called Big Easy Con. It was a first-time show, and it seemed reputable. It was run by the guys who do Awesome Con, and that's a really good show for me. Anyway, I got there, and the first day was just completely dead, and the second day was like good, but then by 4 o'clock it just died down. It was a bad show overall, but I made it work. And the only way to do that is to just keep hitting the ground, keep getting rejected, keep pushing, keep pitching, don't stop. Who gives a fuck how many times people say no? It does not matter. Just keep pushing, because that's how you get that market research. You get it by weeding through all those rejections, by hearing no 1,000 times, you know?
What were you going to say, Josh?
So what I was going to say was I lost my train of thought there for a moment. I apologize. I went back.
I was saying know your audience, and your eyes lit up.
Thank you. Yeah. So as far as like doing the market research and knowing your audience, it really comes down to like, for example, you were saying also with a new show, do we decide to do it or not? Sometimes it just comes down to is that we've been to that market before with another show, or we know who's running the show. Sometimes you may find a show and they may call themselves Fanapalooza. This is a made-up show. It doesn't exist, right? and you find out they just started out and they're going to be bringing in new things. Hey, what's up, buddy?
There he is.
And because of knowing those people, you know for a fact whether or not those shows are good or shows are bad, and that lets you plan ahead. Now, for example, with Big Easy Con, the people who were running that show before, while technically this is a brand new show in that market, at the same time, the people that own the company that owns that company have been doing shows for several decades now, and they hadn't invested any of their time and money. And so sometimes that comes down to the boring business side of knowing your fan base as well. For us, when it comes down to New Orleans, we understand that unless, hey, there's a really large festival and you're not part of that, or if you're not really focusing on that kind of genre, we haven't found certain things do well there. For example, like video game stuff doesn't do as well in New Orleans. But that's a whole side topic in itself. So totally get it. And it just comes down to is, hey, we've all been there. For me, I think the last one that was bad was Palm Springs. We had done enough research. It looked good. And I'll leave it very, very short. It was not even remotely. It was terrible.
Mike,
the horror.
Mike Watson, welcome into the room. You're running a little bit behind. No big deal. We just want you to introduce yourself.
It's the Burrito Man.
Yeah, I thought I had more time. I was doing my live stream, and I saw your message. I was like, damn it, I thought I had another half an hour. But Mike Watson, publisher of Short Fuse Media Group, founder of Freestyle Comics, and the most enthusiastic person in comics. I dare anybody to challenge me on that. Fight me.
I know. Henri's giving you a run for your money right now.
I've heard about this guy. I was very excited to get on this cast to see what this guy has to say. I heard he's a seller of books.
He's a machine, I tell you. He's a machine. I've seen him in action.
Now, for anybody that's tuning in and curious,
you know what? I have to apologize because, Josh, I have not heard anything you've said this whole time, and I feel bad because I totally interrupted you earlier. And I think I should probably try and come in and come out or something. And by the way, Mr. Watts, a pleasure to meet you. You do sound very enthusiastic, and we need more of that, goddammit, in comics. Yeah. I have no problem sharing that role with anybody. It's good to have more people enthusiastic about what we do. We should be enthusiastic.
You need to hear Henri's freestyles, though. I'm just saying.
All right, I'll back out and come back in, and we'll see if that fixes it.
Yeah. Let me see it. Let me try real quick because, Josh, I feel horrible. I haven't heard anything you've had to say. Hang on a second.
Okay. All right. Well, if everyone will forgive me for just a brief moment, because enthusiasm is fantastic, but sometimes you don't get to plug your own horn from another perspective. So Mike, he has been doing comic books and his own indie titles for as long as I can remember, from before I started doing this full time. And when I reference something, for those of you who have not seen Freestyle Comics before, with the burrito, one of the first shows I ever did was in the middle of Ohio, and it had just been purchased by a very large corporation. And it was the very last of that show. And for me, I was sitting there just going, this is amazing. This is the best thing ever. I get to see so many new artists, and I get to meet these people. And I met my colorist for the first time. Back then I was using a colorist. And long story short, it was towards the end, I started hearing this rumor going around that there was this dude that was like, look, man, you buy a comic book and I'm going to give you a free burrito. And for some reason, like, things had just already gotten crazy. And I had already walked over and talked with him and a few other things. And then my own little plug, hey, man, let me see your character. I'd love to draw it for you. You know, like all starting artists do. And he's just sitting there, and he went to Chipotle, and he bought like a caterer's load of burritos. And like, sometimes it comes down to that. It was figuring out what works for you. Since then, he's evolved into a far more economic form of hitting the lines with the speaker and hitting some freestyle raps about pop culture and Comic-Con and things like that. But you know, I'll do my best not to repeat it all the time, but it really comes down to is knowing your market. And sometimes if you got to shill, let's shill. Let's give some people a free lunch.
Josh, I can hear you finally. That's great. You have such a wonderful, pleasant voice.
So thank you. I appreciate it.
I'm sure everyone wishes they couldn't hear my voice, but we do have to press on. Mike, you didn't get to do your intro. Do your intro.
He did.
He did do his intro.
Oh, he got kicked off at the end when he was saying where to follow him. You never threw.
Oh, there we go.
I just assume everybody knows.
Yeah.
You can follow at Art of Mike Watson, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Same thing for Freestyle Comics. Website for the publisher, shortfusemediagroup.com, where we sell comic books, merch, music, toys, all that good jazz for geekdom. You can pick it up there. Little secret: if you order the printed copy of the books, comic books, you get the digital comic for free.
Now we have a question up for you guys so you guys can see it. Are shows more or less effective to meeting your goals now compared to in the past? So I guess what they're asking, has it gotten easier or harder for you guys as time has gone on to reach the goals you have set yourself for the weekend?
There's so much an ebb and flow to these shows. It's almost as if some shows become more effective, and then in the same year, some shows become less effective. And it's just this weird monster. Like there'll be times where, like, one of my favorite shows always to do is Denver Comic Con, and in one year it was one of the worst shows that I did, and the previous year was one of the best shows that I did. So I don't know. It's always kind of a weird thing to read as far as now. If I had to say overall, since I started doing this, it's definitely become more effective to meeting my goals. But from show to show, it can always be different. You're always going to have those ups and downs.
Yeah, I find that my goals have changed over time. You know, like before, I would say in like my more formative years, I really wanted to just focus on selling through everything I brought with me to conventions. And now I've kind of like switched that over, and it's not about selling out of everything. It's about, did I cover my costs? Did I make enough money to actually take home? And did I have good interactions with my customers? Like, was I able to keep my cool? Did I enjoy the process of being at this show? Do I want to do this show again? Kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I find that as I've done these shows over and over in recent years, that, you know, like you guys, my goals have changed too, maybe elevated a little, but by then I'm going to enough shows where I'm a repeat person there and more people know who I am, and, you know, set my goals a little higher. And except for stuff that I can't control, like the weather was a bear to me last year, because we had that heat wave here in the Midwest that really did in a number of shows. But other than that, yeah, I find it as effective, if not more. And I think that's the best way for us to develop a personal rapport with our customers, even more than being online, because, you know, they can hear us and maybe we're a little less guarded than we are when we're online, or maybe we are, who knows. I know I don't swear as much when I'm on the air as when I'm in person, but yeah, it just changes over time, and it is, for me, it is effective as long as the weather's cooperative.
Eric, what do you think?
Where's your enthusiasm, damn it? No, I'm just
He's trying to mince his words.
Oh, that's what he's going to say before he says it. Oh, my crap. I got to write that down.
Right, do this. That's a good thing.
Well, for me, shows have been, I've met a lot of my goals. When I go to shows, I kind of set two goals, my realistic goal and then my projected goal. So just to keep myself grounded. A lot of conventions I have a lot of fun at, so that's my first goal, to have fun at the show. I want to make sure that people around me at the show are having a good time. As we were saying yesterday on the cast, Rob, it's when you get there, read the room, and you'll be able to gauge how far you can go and what you need to rein in and whatnot. But as long as a show gets people in the room, that's all I care about. If they got people in the room, then it's all on me. I have nothing I can blame on the show as long as there's people there. There's literally only been one convention where they did not get people in a room, and it was the show's fault that I didn't make any money, because it was this whole drama thing going on, and people, like, when by the time we got there, we didn't realize people were picketing against the show. So it was like, but every other show that I've gone to, as long as there's people in the room, that's a person that I can talk to. And when I talk to people, I'm always in the mentality of thinking, hey, dude, you signed an invisible contract that says I get to talk to you. You paid money to get in this show. You knew people were going to be hawking and selling stuff to you. So I get the right to talk to you, every single one of you. And you ain't got to buy my stuff. That's perfectly fine. But I get to pitch it to you if you're walking past my table. And that's how I look at it. So if I don't hit my goals, it's me sitting down and looking at what did I do as an individual. Did I talk
Amen. Amen. Amen.
Did I talk to at least 80 to 90% of the people that walked past my table? Was I in the mindset of engaging these people versus just selling to them? How did my creative stages go? How did my panels go? Did I take use of every opportunity I had to bring people back to the table? That's part of the reason why I do the hype line now at Wizard World and GalaxyCon. I go out there and I talk to the people that are sitting there waiting to get into the show. And then I give them a ticket to bribe them to come back to my table so I have the opportunity to pitch to them. I come up with an exclusive item that doesn't cost me a lot of money. I give it to them for free, whether they buy something or not, and then I convert that into a sale, or I try my best to. And who is trying to call me right now? They don't realize I'm online. And out of those, and so while I'm having fun and I'm trying to interact and engage, I'm also the business part of me. I'm keeping track of how many of those sales am I actually converting. Am I staying on a 45 to 50% conversion rate on those? If I know I'm falling behind, then I stop and I kind of try to look back. All right, what have I been saying to these people? What have I been saying? Okay, maybe that's not working because the last 10 people didn't buy anything. Let me stop now and switch it up. So trying to look at it from those perspectives, and a lot of the accountability falls on me as a creator. Again, as long as there's people in that room, if that convention got people there, it's all on me from that point then.
That is such a goddamn good point, and exactly what I would have said if I would have thought to say it. That is perfect, man. That's exactly it. If there's people
coming for
on
your
the floor,
title, let's watch out.
It's all right. Don't worry about it. We all share, right? But the whole thing is if there's people on the floor, then it's up to you. And you got to make it work. And if you the more people you talk to, the higher chances the higher your closing ratio will go. The less people you talk to, the less books you'll sell. It's just, it's math, it's basic.
I will add to that. I'm sorry, Eric. I'll give this to you right away. Mine will be short, I promise. Learn to read faces. Don't pitch to people who don't want to be pitched by you. As someone who creates a fetish book, this was something very important for me to learn very quickly. But I also find it something I'm able to teach people when they share a table with me, and I help them not talking to people that wouldn't be interested to begin with. So knowing how to see what a person's eyes are going and knowing to watch how they're moving, whether or not they're engaging or they're distracted, that can help you from missing pitching someone who is not in that moment ready for you. You have to know that they're open to you. It's like, when you're dating, I hate to use the metaphor, but it's the perfect one. Know if they're wearing a wedding ring. Know if they're, know if they're not trying to dress up to get your attention. Some people are just busy in that moment. And if you pitch them at the wrong time, they'll remember you as someone who bothered them. Don't be a person who bothers people. Eric, what were you going to say?
Well, I can't tell you enough. I've been doing this for so many years. I can't tell how many times I will be in the company of people who are, moaning that they didn't make any money. Nobody liked their book. Nobody liked their art. But when I see these people, they have their head down all damn day long. They aren't making any eye contact. It's like they just presume that they're so badass that their art should just sell itself. People need McDonald's. They're not going to just walk in unless you've got shiny lights and stuff to attract them, which is a good idea sometimes. But they're not going to know you're there because their mind is probably somewhere else where they're walking down the aisles.
Yeah, I'm not trying to piss people off, but you put a person next to me that is sitting down looking at their phone or their iPad for the whole convention, they are going to be mighty pissed off at me because I am loud. I am out there on the floor. I am pulling people over to the table. I am in the middle of my fandom. I'm talking to cosplayers. I'm talking to I'm talking to everybody. If you got a cool shirt, I'm bringing you over to my table. Like, man, let me see that shirt. That's really cool. You like that character? Oh, I got this print with that character on it. And like, oh, shit, I didn't see it. Like, I am interacting. Do not come to my table and be quiet, man. Like,
I just want to piggyback off that right quick. There's a difference between being a good enthusiastic salesperson and an asshole carnival barker. I've seen this too.
Yeah.
People who pull people over from in front of other people's tables,
now
stand in front of their table.
That's the worst.
Yeah, that don't do any of that crap.
There's a
No, I think that's a really good point. I think that's a really good point because, like, and I think everybody who's on here kind of gets the point that you don't do that, because if we did do that, we probably wouldn't be in this business, because people who do that typically don't last very long. Like the whole carnival barker thing. And the thing too is, I think it's also important that you create the right atmosphere. It's not just about engaging in it, and it's not just about reading. Sometimes I've had more sales than I can count from people who I thought, I was convinced in my own head, were not interested, because they were giving me all the signs that they weren't. But then all of a sudden they buy everything, and you don't know what it is that's going in through people's minds. Now, Rob, I will say you did make a good point. Like, the first 15 minutes of New York Comic Con, when you see people like rushing to that, toy booth or whatever for those exclusives, those people you don't pitch, because they're off doing something. But after that, it's kind of like open season, and you'll take whatever comes your way, kind of a thing. And if you get a whole bunch of people with their hands in their pockets, it's better to try and see if they'd be interested in it, as opposed to passing the opportunity and not pitching them at all.
Dude, like, so that the whole like convention, sitting next to people at a table, I absolutely love it. I'm like, I introduce myself to people. I say hello, I shake hands, hey, I'm going to be your neighbor this weekend. And we're going to be in this space. The last show I went to, it was GalaxyCon, VA. And I was sitting, I can't remember his name, but he was super freaking cool, man. He does the spray paint art with the stencils. He has like 140 pieces every time he goes to the show or whatnot. And we were sitting next to each other. We had picked up each other's pitches. So when he was gone, I could work his table. When I was gone, he'd work my table. And he was trying to get rid of this one piece. It was like $150. He was trying to get rid of it, and he wasn't there. I started pitching it, and he came back. He was like, oh, okay, I'll take over and whatnot, and I faded back. But I saw the dude was drifting, so I came back over, and he backed off, and I ended up selling the piece for him. And and we just became super cool after that. And like, he just worked my table for me whenever I was gone, trying to sell stuff for me. So it's like, obviously know your crowd and things like that. But man, we're all in this shit together. We're at a comic book convention. There's enough people here for everyone to be able to eat. Like, I know out of 10 people walking down this hallway, all 10 of those people are not into my comic books. But if I can help close a deal for you, I will. I love going to somebody's table that I've put in my con family and selling their stuff to them. I absolutely love doing stuff like that. And then other people see that, like, man, it's like positive energy. That's, at a convention, I'm all about just like positive energy and us like going out here and like we can all kill it.
Josh, what were you going to say?
Well, I was going to basically kind of just sum up everything that everyone's saying, because I'm in massive agreement. The shortest version to this, guys, is that no matter what, as an artist, to survive in this industry, you have to learn how to be a salesperson. And it doesn't matter if you're like, well, I don't like shilling, or I don't like plugging, or I don't like this. Guess what? It's the equivalent of going in and was going, hi, welcome to Cheesecake Factory, or hi, welcome to so-and-so. Can I get your order? You're going to make sure that you do your best to accommodate what everybody wants. In those examples, somebody may just be there for a drink, or somebody's just there for a takeout order, or somebody is there because somebody sent them to go get food in this Grubhub situation. You have to figure out what's going to work for your markets. And if you're working with your neighbors, as far as that's concerned, it really comes down to it. Sometimes you're going to have a great relationship with your neighbor, and then there's going to be other times where if that person is near you ever again, then you make sure that you are not anywhere near them, because It depends on which stencil guy you're talking about here. If it's the one that with the splatters around the corners, I specifically refuse to be around him from any point on, because he brought assistants who proceeded to throw things onto my table and bump my table and knock things over, and then try to talk crap about my art because it was all prints on the side of the table that they could see. And so I specifically will never be near that person ever again.
We do have to move on to the questions.
Yep. But yeah, in short, guys, sales. Got to learn your sales.
Yep.
I will say this, the worst person to ever table next to, and this is going to give heat, and I'm not open to discussing it because it's my story, it's cosplayers.
It's your
Cosplayers are the worst thing in the world to table next to. I'm being honest. Send the hate mail to Indie Volt. I don't care. Send them all my hate mail. We do have a question here, though. Sean Keenan asks, do you believe Kickstarter and other crowdfunding sites have helped you produce more stock for your show? What do you guys think? Has crowdfunding helped you have more stuff?
So when I first started, the very first thing I thought, and this was years before Kickstarter allowed shipping and everything else, that when I wanted to invest, because I had been busting my butt, I had released probably around 300 new pieces of art. And this is stuff I don't even sell at this point. I threw it out on Kickstarter, and I thought I was doing a really good deal, but there were so many things that I bombed. So the short answer was I thought it was a nice idea, much like Gandhi and Western civilization, but at the same time, it bombed horribly. So it comes down to is like, look, Kickstarter, it should be kind of your own. Like it should be you're trying to branch out to a market that's not going to be at your shows. Because if it's your fan base that buys that only through Kickstarter, they're not going to buy anything else because they've already got it already taken care of. They've got everything sorted. They bought it all through your crowdfunding and they got it a heck of a deal, or they got it before everybody else did. So, you just have to choose your battle. Do you want to get that money first thing and first off and then try to focus on new fandoms? Or do you want to try and find a way to make it so that everything online is more of an exclusive?
And I will say this just as a warning, T-shirts might do great at an actual starter. It's not going to do as well in person unless they already like the brand or the logo is kick-ass. Like I can sell my free hugs and spanks without selling a book. It's crazy to me. I figured they'd want the book too, but they'll buy the T-shirt and go. But I've had Indie Advocates T-shirts. Even this Reaper shirt, which I never expected to sell well, did sell well. It wound up selling. But then the things like Jax, the book I had for Jax, there was an orange shirt. No one wanted it. So you got to kind of know what works, like Josh said, online versus in person. Because online, a lot of time with Kickstarter, guess what? They're supporting you. They're trying to help you. And they're not doing that at a show. At a show, you're very much more trying to win them over. As opposed to Kickstarter and crowdfunding where they're trying to help you. So look at it this way, the dating metaphor again. In person, you're going to date someone. Online, it's your family and friends helping you learn how to date with someone. So treat it that way, and I think that you'll understand it better, because I see a lot of people complain about T-shirts, and they have a very big merch section on their table, and then they complain at the end of the weekend they didn't make a lot of sales. Well, duh, they didn't realize you sold comic books. They just thought you were a merch section, Be who you are and be out there. Mike, what do you got? Because I saw your eyebrows go up.
I was going to say, I have a bit of a different perspective on Kickstarter. I just started getting my feet wet with it the last couple years and whatnot. And from my side of it, from my perspective, it has increased or rather strengthened a fan base for me. So because my audience isn't really large right now, I have two separate audiences. I have my Facebook audience that gives me a lot of support, but then I have a whole separate Kickstarter audience as well. And after I did my Kickstarters, I started going to my shows, and I noticed the people from the Kickstarters were bringing the stuff to me that they got from the Kickstarter to meet me, to get it signed, and to get whatever new stuff I had to correlate with that Kickstarter. And that was really, really good, because I think we did 3 Kickstarters for Freestyle Comics that year. So I had got to get this whole interpersonal interaction with people. Like, I didn't really know who they were making comments and stuff, but then they're like, oh, yeah, man, I pressed your Kickstarter. Can you sign the books? Here's the books I got. Okay, and what new books do you have from it? So I was able to start blending and merging those audiences together. And so it helps on my end.
But I think, Mike, what they're trying to ask isn't the growing of the audience as much as it is, do you produce more stock? Has your Kickstarter led to you having more to sell at your table?
Oh,
just to stay pure to their question, because I do want to answer that question.
Oh,
are you producing more because of your Kickstarter to get on your table now? Are you trying to take advantage of, hey, we had this, so let's order more and I can sell it at my table during the year? Are you doing that?
I am doing, like, the number one issues with sold a lot on the Kickstarter. I do bring more of those, but that's kind of traditional. Number one issue sale. So I guess in that regards, my numbers really have not changed that much. So it's more of the audience building for me. So yeah, I'm sorry, I got you now.
No, that's sometimes these questions aren't simple to answer. You got to dig into them a bit. What do you think, Brian? I see that evil mind of yours at work.
Oh, you know me so well, Rob. Well, I have only done one Kickstarter campaign for myself. I've helped with several others that I've had a creative interest in. I view Kickstarter as getting people familiar with my product, whereas I see the shows as letting them get familiar with me, and then maybe getting an interest in the product after that. Yes, it definitely increased the amount of product I have, because I'm hooked into all these campaigns that have my work in them, whether I'm running the Kickstarter or not, and then of course I will get copies of it. So that has allowed me to go from simply a book publisher to a book and comic publisher. So I can go to, say, a book show like PennCon or Imaginarium, and I can put up my novels there, and that works. But then I can also go to a comic book convention and then put my comic books front and center, and then maybe get people to see that I carry other products. Whereas, I don't carry, like you guys said, I don't carry like T-shirts, I don't carry drinking mugs and things like that. But they might see my comic books and say, "Oh, yeah, you do comic book like books." So they pick up on that as well. So that's how I tie it together.
What do you think, Henri? I know you're back. Did you hear the question? So I know you dropped.
I did. Yeah,
Okay.
I did hear the question, and my answer is yes. Kickstarter basically saved my business at one point and allowed me to continue producing, because in 2014 I lost my main investor on Yisum Shin, and what ended up happening was I did what I probably should have done from the beginning. I turned to Kickstarter. And if it wasn't for the money that I raised on Kickstarter, I wouldn't have been able to produce the actual book. And now it's been more of like I've kind of tuned it to more of like a supplemental thing. So it's not that I necessarily, if I'm doing a Kickstarter, it's to help cover some of the initial costs that I have for the book. Like when you go and you distribute through, say, like Diamond, and they give the publisher their initial order, what that usually covers is the print run. So after that, the publisher can go and sell it through other means, whatever it is, either through conventions or online or whatever the case is. For me, that's kind of what Kickstarter has become, and I've developed my own following from it as well. I've also managed to garner in my current followers from it. So it all helps, and I think it's a huge game changer, and it's something that I think has definitely allowed for more content to not only be generated, but just overall exist, just because it's a pre-ordering system. It's getting people a chance to get acquainted with your work before it actually comes out.
And Eric, what do you think? Does your Kickstarters give you anything that you take to shows on purpose, or do you just take the leftovers like me?
I've never run a Kickstarter yet. I do have one Indiegogo under my belt, and we're wrapping that book up, the Roddy Piper Kilted Avenger. So yeah, it will give me something new to put on my table.
All right, guys. If we're all done with that, I do want to move on to the next question. Everyone, all right. If someone is going to their first convention and investing in a table, walk us through what their table should include and how much product they should bring. Now,
that's what the whole thing was going to be about.
Yeah. That's an extremely difficult question for anyone to answer.
I will be happy to kick it off if you guys are cool with it.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, you do it. Hold on. I just want to stress that no matter what the answer is, Meredith, it's going to determine what you're doing more so than what we've done. So understand that anything that's said now is individually based on what we've had experience with. So with that said.
And exactly, I was going to kick it off with exactly with what Rob said just now. Everything depends on what it is you're trying to sell, and what you're trying to show. Because think about it this way: your table is sort of like your store, right? It is your storefront. So when people see it, it's like they're walking into your shop. And what do you want to be showcased? Well, obviously the book that you're out there trying to sell. And what should your goal be? Your goal should be whatever you think your goal should be. If your goal is to come out there and sell 100 books, well, then make it your goal. You don't have to look at what other people are doing or what you think you should be doing because other people are feeding you ideas. Come in there and do it your way. That's what Jack Kirby said. Do it your way.
Yep. Anyone else want to touch this one?
Yeah. Oh, I will if nobody minds.
I'm waiting.
Oh, yeah, brace yourselves. The one thing to keep in mind is, like when you go into a grocery store, are you more likely to buy from a place that is, or a comic book shop is probably a better example. Do you want to go someplace where the products, you have to look for them, they're badly displayed, doesn't look like any care was taken, they just threw it out on the table, which I've seen people do at shows. You want to have as positive, a display as possible. I always try to put my newest work forward, or the stuff that is apropos if it's a genre kind of show. For instance, if I'm going to do a horror convention, I'm going to put like my Bachelor's Grove book and Santa Stein out front and center, whereas other places like a comic convention, I'll put like Volcana and Skyman out along with my comic book work and just kind of drive people through the row of product. Anything you can do to make your area look great is always appreciated. I never rely on the promoter to bring me table dressing and stuff. I always bring my own just in case. Just think about what you would like to see at a table what makes you approach a table other than one of us yelling, "Hey, come over here." And as far as quantities, that is, if I knew that sort of thing, I'd be at the racetrack right now, because that is such a crapshoot. I tend to have access to everything. I try to bring enough that I can keep the area going for at least a day with heavy sales, but have like extra supplies in the car. So. And the thing is also with displays, I will point out something else that maybe gets more to the heart of what we were supposed to be talking about. But there are little corners you can cut. Like I have a coupon on my phone for Hobby Lobby that allows me to get 40% off one item every day. That same thing allows me to go across town to Joann's because they'll honor that too. You learn little ways to cut a corner here and there as far as expense goes, but it doesn't necessarily have to show to the customers. I knew someone that was making his stand-up displays. I use wooden easels. He was using duct tape and cut up cereal boxes, I think.
Actually, they were USPS.
So, or UPS boxes, excuse me. Cookie corrects me as usual. And couldn't understand why you couldn't get people to come near him. So, but anyway.
Will you leave my table alone, Brian? Don't pick on my table.
I wasn't going to name you, dude, but now that you called me out. But no, seriously, as far as quantities, I would rather take too much than take too little.
That's what she said. Josh, go ahead. What did you say?
Oh, here it goes. All right. So be forewarned, there might be a ranting, and the devil might cut me off here. So, first and foremost, the first thing I'm going to tell you to come and make sure that you, what's the word? What product you should bring. first and foremost, bring something that you are passionate about. I don't care if it's your indie book. I don't care if it's a fan art piece. I don't care if it's you sitting there and doodling on a cup and making it look pretty because you learned how to make paisley patterns. It's got to be stuff that you are passionate about first and foremost. Yes, this is a business, but at the same time, if you can't show any kind of energy or positiveness when someone's walking by your table, you're not going to be able to sell the other stuff. And it sounds really, really petty, but it's one of those things where it's like, we use this phrase fan art, like, oh, well, that implies that I'm a fan of the artwork. No, a fan art is designed to be for the fan, not for us. And so sometimes you have to find that right balance. So that's my first thing. First and foremost, have something that you are passionate about. For me, it's Nightmare Before Christmas, or it's an art challenge. Like, can I draw something and then go on the other side and make that piece be opposite 100%? So like a playing card art, but still work both ways. Like, that's a challenge for me. It's something that I want to do. And it developed into, this is what people see when they come and see my show. From a boring perspective, number 2, first and foremost, make sure you bring enough. Don't come in with 5 prints in 3 different sizes. I can't stress this enough. It drives me up the wall. Don't come in with an 11x17 and sell it as a 4x6 and an 8x10 as well for slightly cheaper, because that's not going to work, especially if it's your first Comic-Con. People are going to always want to happily try to support somebody who's brand new, but at the same time, they want to keep their money low. So they may only buy the small one. If they're not that passionate about the project that you're passionate about, they're not going to buy it. So don't just sit there and take the same piece of art and reproduce it on cups and t-shirts and everything else. And then just from a pure practical standpoint, my advice from years of doing this, for your very first show, do me a favor, just try and get like 20 pieces done. Just 20. If you can't manage 20 by the time you've done your first show, I'm going to be honest with you, more than likely, you're not going to have enough variety between all of your pieces in order to actually be successful. Like, there are going to be some things that are here and there, but if you just go with a basic average of, let's say, out of 100, that's a fifth. You know, that's 1/5 of the audience you might appeal out of 100 people because of those different fandoms. And then I guess the only other thing I can really say is, from a practical standpoint for yourself, make sure you can take credit cards, make sure you got change. But that's more behind the table versus in front of the table. And then I think the only other thing Eric was touching on was distracting lights. Lights can work, lights can fail. Same thing can be said for music. If music's too loud, it can annoy your neighbors, it can annoy you, people will run away from you. You have to find the right blend of what's going to make it work for you. Yes, your table is an extension of yourself, but at the same time, you're supposed to be trying to draw people in, not sit there and be like, like a forest fire. And be like, oh, look at the pretty fire. I don't want to go near that. You want to be more like a campfire or a bonfire. People want to come towards it. You want to come towards the warmth. So I apologize. This is something that it kind of drives me up the wall. And I say this for every single artist. This is my own pet peeve. For the love of God, get rid of those box wire crates. They're annoying, they are not practical, and they are a terrible use of display, because the first instinct you have is to use the sides, and then my first instinct is to block all of your art because you're trying to display in my space that I paid for. But coffee and some water.
Mike, I just want to jump in real quick.
Go.
You guys are mostly artists. I just want to talk from the comic book creator point of view. We don't have 20 things to display, but this is one thing I want to say real quick. This is why you can't just create one thing. I have so many friends out there who are only doing one genre, only doing one thing. And when I first started, everyone's like, you're crazy. You're going from a fetish book to a monster book to a kid's book. I'm not so crazy now when my table is full of books that are all different, because I can sell to any person who shows up to a show now. Like everyone said here, they don't want the fetish book. Cool. I got a kid's book. You don't want the kid's book? I got the Advocator. Don't want the Advocator? I got this book. I got that book. Have a very diverse library that you can sell from. Go ahead, Mike.
All right, so I'm very, very particular about my table space. I consider setting up the table an art form all in its own. When you're first going to a show, like I understand, there are no rules to it.
Yeah.
You set your rules in the way that you want to do it. If you can talk it, if you can pitch it, if you can sell it, then bring it. kind of like on the, like you got to kind of go out there with trial and error and figure out what works for you. When I was first going out the shows, I was printing like 100, 150 copies of my book and bringing it. Well, I wasn't selling 100, 150 copies of the book at the table or whatnot. But I also do prints. Now, I have, oh God, maybe over 200 prints since I've been doing all this stuff. I sell a large batch of prints, but I don't sell a whole lot of one print. So I keep track of all my sales. So if I'm averaging at the last 5 shows, 5 prints of this one print, then I'm going to bring 7 prints of it, just in case I go over that average. But back to the original question. Bring what's comfortable for you to bring, because if you're by yourself, you got to be able to carry it all by yourself. You got to determine how many trips you're going to make. Your table, which I feel is one of the most important things, your table needs to be whatever it is that you're trying to sell. If you're selling comic books, then your table needs to be comic books. If you're selling prints, your table needs to be prints. If you're selling cups, the majority of your table needs to be cups. Whatever you feel, as my man said over here. Oh wait, over here.
Places.
You've got to bring something that you're passionate about. And if you're passionate about that one thing, bring it and set it out on your table. Kind of like the thing that I had to learn with trial and error. I sell prints, I do commissions, and I do comic books, which I still get alarmed by the question, like, did you draw those prints? Yes, I drew all those prints. I wouldn't have much here if I didn't draw.
But I can't even draw a stick figure. You got talent, bro. Like, mad skills, man.
Hey, man, congratulations. And what's the congratulations? I'll come back later, man. I promise. I'll hit you up later. I don't have my wallet. I don't have my wallet.
I'm going to touch on Meredith's question a little ahead of schedule, saying, is it better to run out of stuff than pivot and meet and greet stock with or meet and hand out cards? I don't know. I would say if you have the ability to find some place to print off smaller versions, in that case, it's the exception to the rule. Like, go print off some more copies if you can. And if not, make sure you got a demo copy and be like, hey, unfortunately, I'm sold out of this piece, but I can do online orders. And I'll give you an incentive. If you buy, hey, I'll give you a discount on another print you see, or I'll give you, I'll throw in a mystery print with the free shipping. It just comes back down to the sales perspective.
Yeah.
And if you are going to sell out,
you run out, it's a good thing.
Yeah, if you do run out, it's a good thing. But I would say it's better to run out towards the end of the show, and that's a hard thing to calculate. You don't want to run out on Saturday and then have all Sunday with nothing to sell.
Right. And I'll say also that. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
Another little thing that I would like to do is I kind of map out where I'm going to be at. It just so happens that and this is coming to know like how much your stuff costs to make, and what kind of cut or loss you're willing to take. But this USB stick, I always keep USB sticks with me. So I keep my print library on these USB sticks. So if I'm not sure how I'm going to do it at a show, when I bring a certain number, let's say I'm bringing 8 to 10 prints of each one of my print, but all of a sudden some random print that I haven't sold in 2 years is selling like fire, but I can't call my printer because I'm 7 hours away to print it. I'll go to a Kinko's and I'll go print those up. Sometimes,
yeah, I feel like we could have an entire show on behind the scenes. But I think we all have the USB drive. Throw it up, hummingbird, mockingbird style,
Right.
Eric?
One of our close friends recently has started bringing his own printer and power source, and is making stuff right there at the table if he needs to.
I wonder if we're talking about the same guy.
Yeah,
I think we all are. I think we all know.
It's kind of a prudent choice, to be honest. It comes down to it.
If you can afford it, if you can do the logistics, that's the way to scale up. You scale up as you can.
I mean, just on the math, if you only bring 5 of every one of 200 prints, that's still a crap ton of weight. That's 4 printer boxes if you're using a good cardstock. So, and a comic book's 30 pages. It's the equivalent of 5 to 10 pages of cardstock, depending on the quality of the comic, and it's not even including trades.
And that's the only exercise I get is carrying stuff in and out of venues. So, but actually, I'll say, especially since I'm not an artist, I think it's better to have the stock than to run out, simply because 9 times out of 10. people buy it from you right then, not only for the personal experience, maybe the autograph, but also it's convenient, and they don't want to wait. And so I don't have a real high percentage. I don't bank on that person saying, well, I'll come back later.
Oh, I think
I'll get your thought. I can't always be sure of that.
Yeah. I will say this, from the comic book point of view and my retail background, if you don't have enough, you failed. I've never wanted to sell out unless I was selling out and that was the end of the run of that book because we were redoing it or rebranding it. Like when I sold out of the original Fetish Babies and we switched to Barbara Unleashed, that was okay because we were supposed to sell out of it. But if I had an ongoing title and I sold out, I fucked up. I messed up. I didn't bring what I needed to, because for us, we can't just go to Kinko's and print a comic book. You don't want to, at least. You don't want to sell that version. Like that's not what you want to sell. So, but I do want to bring up the point of PDFs. I can't tell you how many times at a show I've sold a PDF at my table, told them just send me an email, and I get home and that email's in my thing and I sell them the PDF. Don't cut yourself short. If someone looks like, oh, I don't have money on me, no problem. Take my business card, reach out to me. I have PDFs. Boom, you make sales from home. I can't stress that enough. And all my friends are like, how come when you go to a show, you come back and your Kickstarter gains $100? I'm like, because I know how to pivot. Every time someone tells me they don't got money, I send them to the Kickstarter. When they have money, I don't send them to a Kickstarter because I see my friends do that. Oh, I'm on Kickstarter right now. Who cares? They're in front of you now. Take the sale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you can also do ghost sales too. I mean, I've had situations where customers didn't buy on the spot and then I sell out and they come back to me and they're like, hey, can I still get your book? And I say, yeah, I'm sold out. But what I can do is, you can give me all your information, pay right now. And as soon as I get back home, I'll ship it out to you. And I leave them with my business card and all my information so that they can contact me. And I've had zero problems with this. I've taken care of everybody,
Now, I do want to say that we're out of time. We're at our 1 hour mark. Anyone who has to leave now, I'm going to give you the moment to say goodbye to the audience. If you can stay, that'd be wonderful. We're going to change formats just a little bit in the next part of our panel. Does anyone have to leave right now?
No, I'm good.
I'm good too. We're all good.
Finish my this question. I'm so bad.
Hold on. From this point
on, so do I, Mike.
Coffee break. Coffee filter.
I have something important to say. From this point of the panel, if you're watching this beyond, I'd say May or June of 2020, some of what we're about to talk about may have changed, and we didn't know while recording this. We've been very careful for the first hour not to mention the elephant in the room. As of recording this, we're all stuck inside of our houses, and none of us know when our next convention is going to be. We don't know what's going to change. We don't know how it's going to change. We're going to open up to actually talking about that as well. We are going to answer questions from the people, and we're going to let this run as long as it has to until we all feel that we've said what is necessary. We did not want to talk about it for the first hour. Most people don't watch to this point, being honest. You're Americans. You've stopped watching by now. For those of you who have powered through, you get to hear us talking about what we don't know is an uncertain future. And with that said, go ahead, Mike, you jumped all over it. Go for it.
All right. Elevator pitches are quintessential in selling a comic book. All right. You've got to be able to convey your story with enough passion, love, consideration in that time span to make them come over and say, tell me more about that. I got 6 comic books at my table, and I've gotten my whole pitch for all 6 books, including my prints and commissions, down to 2 minutes.
Mike, I don't believe you. I don't believe you. Do it.
You don't believe me?
Do it. You got 2 minutes. Let's go.
2 minutes right now. Hey, everybody. What's up? My name is Mike Watson, and I make comics. Yay! I've been making comics for several years. My flagship title, Hot Shot, is about a young man in college trying to prove to his girlfriend he's not cheating on her without revealing he's a superhero and not get kicked out of college because he said superhero. Our next book is Vigilant. She's the world's strongest superhero. She's working for the government full-time with no secret identity, but she has amnesia, and she's starting to realize the government's lying to her about who she really is. Next up is Heroes International. They're a premier superhero team in our world. They're just like your Avengers or your Justice League with one key exception. They suck. They're the worst team ever put together, and they're trying to be a better team. Coming around the corner next is Emerald Quest. If you like Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, and X-Men, this is going to be the fantasy book for you. It stars a 15-year-old girl who's a military savant, and she's the youngest general in her queen's army. Finally, we have The Cipher. Cypher is a comic book composed of 2 to 3 short stories featuring new and original characters to the world of freestyle comics. What's the world of freestyle comics? That's a great question. I'm so glad you all asked that. That's all 5 of my comic books put together in one comic book universe. Now, all the books are $5. You can pick them all up. They have multiple issues. But if you're like, Mike, shut up. I don't like comic books. I don't like to read. Oh, my God, I do prints. I have over 200 prints that you can choose from this library. And I'm selling my prints 1 for 10 or 4 for 20. And then you're like, Mike, print produced art? Nah, that's not for me. Well, I do commissions as well. Original artwork right here. I can do a digital print and I can do a live art print for you. Now, you can choose from any of that stuff. My table is your home. Set your stuff down. Get comfortable. The only way you're going to test drive this stuff is if you actually pick it up and like it. If you don't like it, you're not going to hurt my feelings. We'll still be friends. So let me know what you guys want to get. Matter of fact, let me put this in your hand. There's the pitch.
Bravo. That's well done. Very well done. Lots of passion.
Super.
You had 10 seconds extra to say whatever you wanted. Your team.
But you've got that's it. You've got to be able to get somebody on a story because people are into it. They're like, oh, that Hot Shot sounds cool. Oh, Vigilance sounds really cool. And then they always laugh at the Heroes International and they pick up Heroes International. But then they realize that the books are all connected and like, all right, tell me more about this Heroes International or Hot Shot. So I'm not just pitching the one book. I've pitched all 5 of my books. My goal would be great if you guys got all the books, but I want you to be able to walk away from my table with at least 1 book. I try to make a book that's targeted for everyone. But if you pick it up and you're like, well, dang, this one did sound good. I very rarely only sell 1 copy of those books.
I completely agree with Mike Watson. As a matter of fact, I am considering I create books about fetish monsters and more. I actually incorporate that into my pitch. When I don't know what someone was looking at and they just walk up to my table and it's cold, because sometimes that happens. You turn around and someone's staring at you. So you didn't get to see where their eyes went. I'll just turn around and go, hi, I am the underground indie ground devil, and I create comics about fetish monsters and more. I even have a comic book about an elephant that farts and teaches morals. And I look to see when their eyes expand as I'm talking. Because when I say, though, and I said a little faster than I normally do so I can watch the reaction. If I say fetish and they flinch, I know not to go near that topic. If I say monsters and they look bored, I know not to go with monsters. And the other, I have enough of a collection now. I do have very different other things. So you do have to learn from your pitches. Your pitches are paramount. Josh, as an artist, how do you pitch yourself? I'm curious.
I mean, it kind of comes down to really just depends on the genre. If I'm at home, I'm very, very low key. It's like, here I am, I'm drawing, I'm creating, I'll throw in hashtags on social media as far as promotion is concerned. If I'm at a Comic-Con, my elevator pitch, I actually go even further back. I play with the movie pitch. The movie pitch is what can you convey in 2 sentences to a paragraph?
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. For example, if you're pitching a comic book and you're like, it's, it's, oh crap. It's, I'm literally stroking out because my caffeine hasn't kicked in. I apologize. It's the Replacements meets Indiana Jones, and that could be, it could be like BRPD in that case or something like that. Suicide. That you could be like, okay, maybe that's Suicide Squad. And like, okay, it's a band of people that are misfits. They all have to go. It's A-Team meets Escape from Alcatraz, that kind of stuff. You have to give some sort of visual context in their brain, which might be hours of entertainment summed up in real quick. You'd be like, hey, what is this? It's Static Shock meets Superman. It's, you have a completely different market as far as that's concerned. And it's really pitching for me. For me as an artist, I have to rely on those social cues where it comes down to like the eyes, for example. And be like, hey, they come beeline to see a certain character or a certain piece of art. And what I'll end up doing is be like, oh, well, yeah. So for me, that's actually a piece I really enjoy and I'll get to talk about it. I go, hey, most of my work is traditional. So I guess if I jumped in my pitch, it's much, much quicker. I'm like, hey, everybody, how's it going? How's your day? Social, whatever have you. So my name is Josh. Everything you see here is completely done with by me. I do the pencils, I do the inks, and I do all of the colors. And then occasionally I'll actually do the prints myself. And if you have any questions, let me know. I do have prints. I have my art books. And then these over here, these are what I like to call my mini metals. It's a little bit of a different style. It's a completely different medium. But if you have any questions or you're looking for a specific character, let me know. And, other than that, I kind of just leave it really low key. I used to kind of be hopped up a lot more on caffeine and things like that. So for me, I always had to be like super high energy. Brian was touching on this earlier about having like a certain energy or drive when you're at shows. And some days you got to distract yourself. You got to throw on the music. You got to throw on something. And sometimes that might be a talking point too. Suddenly they hear, I chime in with "Haven't You People Ever Heard Of" for the 3 millionth time, just because it's a 4-chord song, But these are going to be those things that draw people in.
Well, I figure if they stand at the booth for more than 3 seconds, I tell them, okay, you didn't run away fast enough. You get the entire line of pitches. And I
figured out 10 seconds is about the average. If it's about 7 to 8 seconds is probably about the time done good.
I don't want to give them that much chance to reconsider. I'm desperate for their money. No, but and I go down the line with all my pitches. And like I said yesterday, I think the elevator pitch is essential, mostly because people don't have the attention span they did 20, 30, 40 years ago.
I'm sorry, Brian, what were you saying?
None of your business. Anyway,
sorry, I was looking at my phone. What's a freestyle comic? What?
I got distracted. What?
Yeah.
Short style comic? What? Short style, free fusion? Yeah.
Yeah, that's me, John. Anyway, no, I was like I do like a regular pitch as an illustration. What I say, everyone wishes their English teacher back in high school said about Moby Dick, that about a 19th century young man signs up aboard a whaling vessel to discover a brand new way of life. However, the insane ship's captain is bound and determined to destroy the white whale that took his leg, even if it means the lives of everyone on board. I'd have run to read Moby Dick if my teacher had told me that. But and I also feel that if you can convey what is exciting and unique about your product at the same time, I've had actually people thank me for not taking 20 minutes to explain what's in my book. It's kind of like asking a gamer, "Tell me about your character." Bring a lunch, sit back. You're not getting out there anytime soon. So I try to do the antithesis of that.
Let me ask you guys a question, and if no one else has anything to add to that, this is just more of a creator-to-creator question. What do you do when the person just keeps staring at you and they're not indicating? Have you ever had that person who you've told them the entire pitch and they haven't walked away, but they haven't said a thing, and they're just looking at you like this?
I've had a little bit on both sides of it. When I was hadn't quite made up my decision, occasionally it meant that we met later after the show, joking aside. After that, it comes down to is occasionally you just run into those people. We were discussing something earlier about those kinds of people sitting at the table and not really moving or whatever, and you've done your whole pitch and everything else. And I had one last year, and it still kind of haunts me because you have to have a level of professionalism when you're at a Comic-Con. You have to make a choice on what things you're going to be doing, good or bad. Henri was talking about it, as well as Brian and Eric as well, about, hey, how you choose to respond to people if you're going to be head down and going, what's the point in life? This particular person, for 45 minutes, I went back and forth with them, with their fandoms and everything else. And about every 10 minutes, they're sitting there with their hands in their pocket telling me about how they don't understand why everyone's trying to hit them and pitch them at the show. They don't have any money and they're not going to spend any money whatsoever. And I went on for about 45 minutes before I officially just gave up, and I put my phone, and they started saying it again. I was like, all right, at this point, I've heard it 5 times. You need to go away from my table. And he like stared at me, and he didn't understand what was going on. And I'm like, no, I'm very serious. I've been polite. We've discussed things. We've discussed, we've discussed my art. We've discussed fandoms. You tried to call me out on art, like I didn't know the characters, or I didn't know the research, or I didn't know what I created that's been sitting at my booth for the last year and a half. I'm officially done. You need to go away. And if you don't, I will get security and we will have you removed from the convention. And the reason why it sticks in my brain is because I do my best not to be that person at Comic-Con, but at this particular point, I had just had it. And I think it really comes down to is emotionally how you're going to choose to respond to that person that's just sitting there and staring at you. When we're sitting there at Comic-Con, we're forcing ourselves to, come out of our introvert shells where we just want to sit in our studios and create. And we have to become an extrovert just for that. I mean, there are some people that are naturally extroverted and high energy and love discussing things all the time. But there are some of us that need batteries. We need to recharge. We're like those wirelesses where we need a couple of days to ourselves and binge watch our favorite show or read a book or whatever have you. So I guess in short, it depends on the situation, but try to make it work. Like pawn them off on your neighbor who has their head down. Maybe give that a go. Hey, did you check out this one? It's about a alcoholic werewolf and a chain smoking vampire. Yeah, you should check that out. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, he's really into that thing you are. Yeah,
yep, I've
never done that.
4 times. I'm not even going to pretend.
All right.
Unfortunately, there are too many people who think that we aren't there to make a living at this. That we are there as their entertainment monkeys, as I like to think of it.
I mean, it is kind of what you touched on this earlier too. Like, hey, you and Mike were talking about, hey, people are coming in. You basically signed a contract saying that you're going to listen to us.
Yeah.
And these people are choosing how long they want to sit, much like with this podcast. They're choosing whether or not they want to continue listening to us drone on.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, for me droning, I apologize. I don't mean that towards anybody.
No. No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you completely. And you do have to take control of your sales area, because when that person's there sucking up your time and energy, that's time and energy you can't spend with somebody who might want what you're offering. So
yeah, those people who ask you all those questions and then don't buy anything. Man, it's just the worst.
Yeah.
a little trick I've learned with I guess non-customers like that just come over and talk. I've built and developed a lot of relationships with people who are just cool, and I don't mind having them over my table.
Right.
But for a person that's just over there talking, and somewhat being annoying, and you're trying to be polite, I use them to my advantage. I start turning the conversation into something that I think other people want to hear. So as people are walking by, I try to engage them in the conversation to bring them over to still try to recoup my sales. So if I'm talking and then I pull somebody over and they're like, "Oh yeah, no, I didn't think Ben Affleck was a good Batman." I'm like, "You're fucking crazy. He's my favorite Batman." And we start talking like, "Hey man, I'll be right back. I'm about to have this dude do a sale." And I work with that sale. And then, maybe that person goes away or whatnot, but I try to use them to my advantage.
Yeah, it's like cordially moving from one person to another. And I find honesty to be the best policy. Like sometimes what I say to someone who's just kind of, talking my ear off, I'll look at them and I'll say, thank you so much for coming by. Thank you for, hearing me out. I got to work right now because this is how I make my living. And, if you're interested, come on back later. I'll be happy to chat with you. And, it's not rude. It's not kicking them out of your table. And I think we've all had experiences where we've had bad days and someone may have rubbed us the wrong way and we might have said something we didn't mean or, had those bad interactions. But, I think as long as you keep a strong, cordial front and, do your best to be kind in most cases, I think you'll get by just fine.
Yeah. That's funny. Occasionally they'll help you out with your sales too.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those situations where it has been the weird staring and the silence, and you're trying to get them to come out of their shell, where they just end up plugging after listening to you shell to a couple of other people. Be like, hey, there's more art in these. Check him out. Yeah, he's a really cool artist. Yeah, or he's this or that. And sometimes it's one of those, they sat there for an hour and you just are just like, oh my God, why? And they're like, all right, well, I got a panel, I gotta go. And they come back 4 hours later and you're just like, oh no. And then like, yeah, so here's $300. I want to buy a commission. Yeah.
And you never know. You never know either. I mean,
you gotta choose your battle.
You got to choose your battles. But and the thing to add to that as well is that you just never know who's buying. In one case, I had a customer come and pick up books for me, and they ended up being like Robert Kirkman's father-in-law. And I mean, it's like that. It's not like nothing led to it or anything. It's not like I got any work or stuff, but here's the difference. Like he's going to go back and he's going to read those comics in front of Robert Kirkman. And he's not going to say, he's at least going to do that now, as opposed to not having the books at all because I was an asshole to him. You know what I mean? So you just never know what that could lead to, and you know, like you always want to keep a good solid front, and it's hard to do that because from hearing all of our experiences of how we've dealt with tire kickers and like other people who just rub us the wrong way at these shows, you have to weed through all that, and you have to know that
Uh-oh.
Yeah, that's just not me, right, Henri?
Everybody hangs on his words.
Henri, we can't hear you.
You froze up.
I think he's been having a little bit of trouble. That's not been uncommon in this day and age with everything that's going on, especially this time of the day. Everyone's coming home. Everyone's putting on the PlayStation 4 or the Xbox. If Henri comes back in, we'll welcome him and we'll continue conversation with him. Let's switch gears a little bit.
I appreciate you saying PlayStation 4 first.
You're welcome. It's just the truth. It's just the truth. And soon PlayStation 5 if we ever get out of the house again. Henri, is that you? Did you jump back in a different thing? I heard him. Yes, he's actually in the place two ways now. Hold on, I move your old bot to bring in your new bot.
I'm so sorry, guys. We had 2 power outages just now, and then for some reason the internet does not want to hear what I have to say about working conventions.
The internet scares you, Henri. That's what it is.
It's right. Well, you guys are saying such great things, and a lot of the things that I feel it all comes into play. I mean, I think all of our experiences are different. Like what has brought us to this point is all different, but we all kind of have the same mindset. We're here. It's like what Mike was saying earlier. There's enough money for everybody. There's enough opportunity for everybody. People who are going to buy Mike's book may not buy Brian's book, but they'll buy Josh's book, and they definitely won't pick up Isum Shin. Everything changes, Yeah. And you got to kind of roll with the punches. And I'm a firm believer of having iron skin and learning how to just forget about that. Once you hit that floor, everything that's happening outside of you doesn't matter. Like if I'm mad about something, or I just found out something happened that sucks, you have to put that off to the side, because right now you're on and you have to be there. It's not about you. It's about the audience. It's about what they're there to experience. And you want to give them, you're performing. You're Britney Spears at a concert. You know what I mean? It's you're the goddamn Backstreet Boys.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You are the goddamn Backstreet Boys. Here in communist.
Brian's more like, I'm Kenny G, and I'm here to entertain all you motherfuckers.
That's right, my God.
All right,
you understand?
I do want to switch gears. We don't have anything at the moment as question goes, so I want to ask you guys. Here we are. It is the last day of March 2020 quarantine year. None of us know what's happening. How are you guys feeling about what's about to come next? And this time, instead of stepping over each other or trying to talk over each other, I think we'll just go one at a time, because I think this is going to be a very personal thing. And I want to give everyone that moment to reflect on what they think the future is going to be. Because I know a lot of us are worried. Is the right word. We're worried about what 2020 is going to look like the rest of the year. We'll start with, I guess we'll start with me and I'll move on. I personally think that we're going to bounce back very quickly, just because we're so bored of being home. And I think the minute they open up con doors, everyone will run to it. What I do hope, though, is when they do open the doors, it's the right time. I hope our leadership has figured out how to protect us and not allow the doors to open until it's the right time, so we don't see any future issues. Brian, how are you feeling, and how do you see the rest of the year going for you?
I'm thinking the immediate summer is going to be a little bit touch and go, because I feel that a number of people who are currently worried about, like my place of business was deemed non-essential. I'm having to file for unemployment. I keep hearing all this chatter out of Washington, and nobody, you can't get 2 people to agree on the same thing. I think the next few months are going to be a lot of people basically just trying to catch up to normal, whether it's living from paycheck to paycheck or what. But I think once people start getting their bills and everything back under control, I think they're going to want to reward themselves. I've talked to, fortunately, a very small number of creators who are treating this like a vacation, and I'm like, no, I'm doubling down. I'm trying to get 2 different books out. One's an anthology. One is my own creation. I'm trying to get a couple of comic books back online. I'm helping with a couple of Kickstarters where I have an interest in them. So when the dam breaks and everybody can start breathing again, that people will think of me and come to me for entertainment with any luck. That's another reason why I'm doing like as many shows as, not shows, but it's in personal appearances, but like Facebook Live, like this, not only just to help Rob and to help his audience and our audience, but to this is mercenary in me, excuse me, that I want name recognition.
Mm-hmm.
So I want people to say, "Oh yeah, I remember that guy with all the funny dress and the sideburns. He sounded fun. I will check out his material," which is all the opening I need, hopefully. So there's a certain bit of calculation, and a certain amount of it is to distract me from trying to look at all the clickbait news services and give myself another ulcer. So that's my perspective on it. I think things will get better. I agree with Rob; it'll get better sooner than later. I think I'm looking actually past July. I think July may be the point where we start to see a little bit of traction in our advantage. Josh, what do you think?
That's a very loaded question. So I think that in general, the fandom has been going through a change during the last couple of years. As far as like people, just far as like Brian was touching on short memory and short attention spans, much like my brain is doing right now. Switching between art mode and the cast, but I don't know. I'm not worried about it. I'm not freaked out about it. From my personal perspective, I'm finding myself being offline a lot more. And like literally as well. Like I've been kind of transitioned to a night shift, in the sense of I'll like work until 4 or 5 a.m., maybe 6 a.m. and then I'll go to bed and I'll wake up around 2. And I think this really impacts people radically different depending on what they do. In my case, I'm still getting notifications despite having cleared everything in my apps, telling me, hey, by the way, you were supposed to be at this Comic-Con. By the way, you were supposed to be at this hotel near this Comic-Con. So it's nice little subtle jabs here and there. I think my opinion touches on something that Eric was saying earlier this month about how there was going to be a great culling of people that come into Comic-Cons just for the quick burst of money and the quick impulse. I think on a positive level, it'd be nice because this time does give you more time to work on some of those personal projects, be it an indie book, be it more detailed pieces. For me, I've been distracting myself by working on 5x7 originals that I had all laid out back in January, and I've just been working on other projects previously. So I think this will be good on some levels because some people will be able to figure out, hey, I need to transition over to an online medium for what I do, or I need to focus on getting out of Comic Cons and moving into video game conventions. If anything, it'll give people a little bit more time. And then from the fan base, last thing I'll touch on, I think is that the fans, yes, there are going to be some that are going to be, hey, needing time to recover and things like that, but there may be people that just completely disappear. I think it's important to be very practical about that. They may follow you online or whatever, but they may take a year to 2 years off. A lot of people I know that are my fans, they've either lost their job or their business is closed indefinitely, and at this time they're sitting there and they don't know what to do. And while I'm happy to try to be a voice of reason, at the same time, everybody creating a virtual Comic-Con or a virtual event center, or whatever have you, that is not going to be the solution. But those are just my initial thoughts on it. I guess if I had to sum it up in one sentence is like, just keep working and we will see.
Eric, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm using this time to head on finishing up the Roddy Piper book, which with a show schedule. So in that way, it's a blessing to have this forced time off. And also, I want to make sure that I'm using every day as much as possible. So I've gone ahead and put myself on blast and announced that I'm doing a Dinosaur Man comic book at the end of the month. And then I'm also going to be updating my webtoon again. And these are things that I'm doing to forcibly hold myself accountable and make public commitments like that to get that stuff so that I can, because I've always wanted to transition from relying on shows for income to being able to pick and choose and focus on doing books more. That's the whole reason why I got into this thing. I want to get back to it. So this time has been a great time for me to be able to focus on that. Now, as far as how I'm feeding myself in May, I have no idea. We just launched, we just lost Motor City Comic Con, which was a big show, May 17th. I did get an email from Denver saying they're 3 months out. They have no plans to cancel. So far, so good in that vein. But, you know, it's one of those things where I have to come to terms. Maybe I need to do DoorDash in May just to pay rent. So be it. The point that I really want to make in the end of this babbling is a long time ago when I first got into this, one of the first professionals that I met is a fellow by the name of Doug Paskowitz. I don't know if anybody knows him, but he did the indie title Arsenic Lullaby, which was a huge indie book at the time, early 2000s era. And he had already started to see his star go up and more opportunities open to him. And the best piece of advice he gave me is that you just, if this is can live through the years, because the people who don't make it are the ones who quit. So again, yeah, going back to the culling, I think we're going to see a lot of fall by the wayside, and hopefully we'll all be served.
What do you think, Watson?
Bring it on.
Man. I think things are going to pop back. I think we will start to have our doors open. We may be in quarantine for a couple more weeks or whatnot. And I agree with Rob. I hope that our leadership makes the right decisions. And when they do decide to open up doors, that, it's the right time. So if we're not in the middle of our comic book convention, because I feel like the first comic book convention that we're at, I feel like it's going to be a frisky show. I feel like I said, people are going to want to be at it. They're going to want to be out the house. They're going to want to see their creators that they enjoy. They want to get back to geekdom. So, we're following the policies. We're following what the state is telling us to do and whatnot. I think if the vast majority of people do that, we'll be fine.
Well, I just want to kick this off by telling you guys a little bit about this dude, Masoyama, who created Kyokushin Karate. And prior to creating this martial art, what he did was he isolated himself for 3 years, and he practiced up in the mountains in Japan. And he was just like literally punching trees, rocks, anything to strengthen his body. And after that 3 years passed, he went out and he started challenging all these different karate masters all throughout Japan and whooped all their fucking asses. And he went all over the world and whooped people's asses all over the place. And he was the first guy to complete the 100-man fight, which was a challenge of his own creation, where he went and he fought 100 black belts in a row. And he did this over the course of 3 days, back to back. I don't know how he did it, but something in his isolation allowed him to become the best version of himself that he could be. And whenever he had thoughts of rejoining society during his period of isolation, what he would do is he would actually shave off one eyebrow so that he would be too ashamed to appear in public. And that kind of kept him on the straight and narrow. When it comes to this, I have to be completely honest with you guys in the sense that I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't want to give any false hope, because I don't want to let myself down in a lot of ways too. I want to believe everything that everyone is saying And my heart is telling me that my heart is right there with you guys in the sense that I hope things will get better and quickly. But if we are going to be in this situation for the immediate future, I'm going to use this period to enhance myself in every which way I can. So, I am working a lot on my production, but I also have a family I got to take care of. And, that's something that I've been focused a lot more on. And it's amazing how many things you realize when you're put into a situation of that kind of like forces you out of your comfort zone. And I think this is what this is. And, now I'm homeschooling my 7-year-old kid, and, the curriculum that they have has been kind of lame because they're trying to figure stuff out, and it's really like kind of lax and all that stuff. But so what did I do today? I'm like, I don't know what to teach my kid. And I'm like, well, I'll teach him how to make comics. And I just started, asking him, like, what do you want to do? And he was almost kind of embarrassed at first. He didn't want to like tell me what he was actually thinking because he was afraid I was going to reject his ideas. But the whole idea was, to kind of teach him. And you teach him by letting him make mistakes and by forcing him out of his comfort zone. He was afraid to draw by himself until I handed him a crayon and said, leave me alone and go draw. Like, don't talk to me until you have something done. And is he going to become a comic creator? If that's his choice, then so be it. But, chances are he probably won't follow down the same path as I will, and that's okay. But, to keep that, to keep yourself busy and to learn something new and to learn what you're capable of doing is only going to make you stronger once you get back out there. Because one thing I think we can all agree on is that nothing is going to be the same after this. I think we will see conventions pick up, and I think they'll be great, and I think we'll have plenty of opportunities to sell stuff. And I agree 100% with what Josh was saying. Virtual Comic-Con is not where it's at. I haven't seen a single sale from any of these virtual cons. I love doing them because it shows people that, hey, I'm out there, I still exist, and I will be back out eventually. But it's not a sales vessel. It's really just kind of like you're putting yourself out there to talk to people and to show them that, like, hey, you still exist. But if this has taught me anything, it's that I can survive in any situation. And whatever I learned from this period of isolation, which I don't know how isolated I am. I'm around my wife and kids and her parents all the time, so it's not like I'm completely isolated. But this period of not going to conventions, which is a really important part of what we all do. How am I going to improve as a person? How am I going to come out there and be a better version of what I already feel I am? And, I have a feeling that I'll once I find the answer to that, then all of this will magically be lifted and we'll get back to work. So here's hoping to that.
Well said. Well said.
Thank you guys. Yeah. All of you sounded really great.
I do want to touch on the whole on-con thing because I do produce a few of these online. However, I, like Josh, have a different reason for doing it. I never meant them to replace. I meant them to temporarily take the spot of, to entertain people and to not make them afraid. I think right now as creators, we have the ability to reach out to people and give them something to do. Like Jack, who's bored in the other room screaming at a phone because he's entertained. We need to entertain people. We need to keep our fans invested in us and to remind them that we're going to get through this together. And then if anyone is dare charging you to be at a virtual table, please run away. Do not spend money on a fake space. And the one thing I did want to ask, and Michael, you had said that one of your books was about a team that was absolutely horrible. Was that what you were saying? That the team you're writing about is a very bad team, and they're the worst team ever? Yeah. I just want to congratulate you on writing New Warriors.
That was good. That was worth waiting for. That was solid. That was awesome. I think as much as we gave Mike a round of applause for his pitch, that was good too.
That was hilarious.
That is, and you know what? That's something we can all take pride in. Is at least we're not writing New Warriors or better yet. But Rob, I wanted to double back on what you said. Also, what we're doing is so important, and what this virtual con does is let people know that, you know, we're still out there creating, because all the first responders that are out there, I can guarantee you, every one of us has a customer who is a first responder who's out there on the front lines right now dealing with this shit. And you know what? They look to us for inspiration. They look to us for entertainment. I mean, more than anything, right? And if we kind of give up hope and we stop doing what we're doing and say what we're doing is not important anymore, then it only becomes true to us in that moment. But entertainment is what's getting us through all this right now. Like, nothing new is being produced in terms of movies and publishing and all that stuff right now. But the actual creators, we still have the ability to work, and our lights are not going out. You know, like, I'm not stopping Eastern Shin production. You guys aren't stopping your work. And when the time comes, we're not going to be there as the guys who didn't use this time wisely. We're going to come out there stronger, and we're going to have more stuff.
Well, I mean, Mint is now going out of business. If you guys have been hearing, they are struggling to pay people. Marvel and DC have all abandoned us with some other publishers, and I think that's the wrong message.
Is Diamond going out of business, or are they just behind on payments?
I mean, behind on payments, that sounds like going out of business. No one's behind on payments when they're doing well. You know, a company doing really well going, we're skipping the payments this month. Just forget us. No, they're in trouble, and Randy had pointed out this last night on a video I was on with him, and I was talking to them in back and forth today. Diamond's just showing the fact that they have been a bad operator for a very long time, and the checks come due, and they're not ready to pay it, and they're going to be on their way out unless Random House buys them, because that's the other room around. But we've been abandoned. As creators, we've had these big companies suddenly stop paying creators instead of doing the right thing. And I definitely think that a lot of people are going to remember this moment as who are the people who stood up and at least kept things going, kept people positive. I give DC credit because DC hasn't said that they're done creating. They're only done distributing. So they've then they're trying to put out some PDFs. So I'm giving them credit. They're trying to find the way to go forward. Marvel has said that they're open to the idea. Basically, we're watching what DC does. And whatever they do that works, we'll do that. So,
actually, what they should do is hire a new production team on New Warriors. You're going to use this time wisely. Do that.
Well, there's a lot of house cleaning that needs to go before we're going to stop seeing that crap.
I heard that there were comic book fans that actually went out and got the coronavirus when they saw that. I'm just saying.
Wow, guys, come on.
Wow. If Corona was
announced that I'm the new writer on New Warriors, and oh no.
So I want to take a quick second because the artist and the colorist for that. For this new title that we're all talking shit about. He's been doing indie books for like next to nothing for the last 15 years. He's been working with like Rich Bernatovich and Jamie Fay and things like that for years. So sometimes, you got to do what pays the bills. And if that's the case, that's what's paying his bills right now. I'm just going to say that right now. We can talk shit all we want, but
actually, Josh, I'm going to say something to that. You're 100%. I'm really glad you said something. One of my editors, or my editor, my co-writing partner and everything, David Anthony Kraft, Brian knows him very well. He connected us to each other.
Good guy.
And
great guy.
Dak, he went down in Wizard as having written the worst Defenders comic, or no, it was the worst Defenders comic or the best Defenders comic for all the wrong reasons. Sorry.
Yeah.
And it was the silliest book. Everybody said it was ridiculous and over the top, and everybody was criticizing it the same way that they would with New Warriors. But later on, all these years later, it's being praised as a book that was, great for all the wrong reasons. We don't know how people are going to react to the New Warriors. So yes, we can all laugh about it now and speculate and everything. And I personally can agree with all the comments out there. But, like what you were saying just now, that was an artist's job. If you were given this job and you had to write this book, you would do it to the best of your ability and follow, yeah, you're 100% right.
I like the character designs. I like the vampire character. But I don't like the origin of the new vampire character because they're arguing, blood transfusion. So they're basically just pulling the She-Hulk origin.
Please don't defend internet gas.
Yeah, I guess. But well, no, I'm talking about the Morbius kid.
No, I know, but that's the lamest of the lame.
And I would write Safe Space in a heartbeat if the payday was there. I am willing to prostitute myself.
Well, despite his name, I will say this. Just look at the powers. Like, his power is basically he can create barriers for other people, but he can't defend himself. So he has to rely on other people to try and do the same thing. Like, if you're just taking apart the bright colors and personal opinions and political and whatever have you,
I don't care about that.
Be an interesting read.
And the characters could be stupid, but if the story is good,
the whole thing is not a color scheme.
Yeah, well, if the story that goes along with these characters is worth it, then why not? I can't comment other than what I've seen, and I think the problem that a lot of people are having with it is it's too on the nose. You know what I mean? If it wasn't
that's
much,
really what it boils down to.
Yeah,
it's a code name for the character. It's a polarizing type of a name that I think either side of the political spectrum is going to look at that, and one side might see it as probably both sides. From everything I've read so far in the press, it's pandering.
Well, I want to take a brief segue with Marvel as far as that's concerned. Super quick. A few years ago, they hired an Italian nude portrait artist to do a variant cover costume. And if you're not familiar with this, you can go ahead and look up Spider-Woman cover and Google it, do it yourself as far as that's concerned. But since then, they have not been able to run a successful title, and they have done everything they possibly could. They took the character and they redid her whole costume. They had her become pregnant and become a single mother. They had her, try out being a detective and everything else. And once again, we're sitting here with a brand new costume design. And it's not that different from some of the earlier Spider-Woman, but sometimes it just comes down to titles. There are going to be failures. There are going to be successes. With Spider-Woman as a character, there has been at least 6 different characters with the name Spider-Woman, not including Spider-Girl. And then Spider-Gwen, Ghost Spider, Spider-Woman, that as a character in its whole suddenly became super ridiculously successful. And
I have an idea for a character.
Yeah.
Spider-Pool.
Spider-Pool?
Spider-Pool.
There we go.
That's happened already. It's part of the Spider-Verse.
No, it didn't. It happened now. It just happened right now.
Well, I will say this. You did do that when you're talking about bad ideas. Someone took the genetic material of Deadpool and Spider-Man, and they created, what was her name? Something Bite. She has 4 arms, and she's blue, and she's literally as nuts as Deadpool, and she's a villain. That it was part of the Spider-Man and Deadpool comics. And I don't know. In short, yes, I will thoroughly admit there are characters that I hate and I think they're stupid, and I will razz on left and right, like Freedom Ring from Marvel, which is basically a Green Lantern knockoff. And I think it comes down to is we all have our memories. We all have our things we really enjoyed. If you remember the early New Warriors storylines, those were really about struggling with physical handicap and dealing with emotional abuse and racial abuse and everything. And I'm just going, I can only say this, guys. In short, is really focus on your history. Yes, we have our impulse, but we need to try to learn from the history of the books as well, and the history of the creators. I had a similar instance earlier with a James Bond story that's being written by people, and they're focusing more about their identities of the writers versus the actual story and content of James Bond. And that really just irritated me because I'm like, you're sitting there going, oh yeah, we're totally fans of James Bond. Oh, we love it. And they're just talking about how sexy Daniel Craig looks in, cut off brief swimsuits. And I'm like, I'm going to have a stroke. I'm going to go have a stroke right now. I appreciate everyone letting me take control for just a quick second.
Actually, I think what you said was fantastic. It absolutely needed to be said because
I've been biting my tongue.
No, it needed to be said.
Henri.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Sorry.
We're gonna tell everyone where he can be followed.
You can follow me at Art of Mike Watson on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Same as Freestyle Comics. Be sure to visit the shortfusemediagroup.com for our website for books, merch, toys, and all that good jazz. I want to thank Rob for having me on the show. It's a pleasure meeting everybody. Although I know some of you already, I had a blast. But I gotta get ready to go teach an online art class now.
All right. Good luck. We'll see you soon.
Take care,
All right.
brother.
Take care, man.
Nice chatting with you, man.
Good having you.
Thanks,
Yeah.
you.
All right. So let me ask you guys, switching gears. What do you guys think we didn't cover today that you want to talk about? Because you all go to shows. We didn't talk about sharing hotels, which I'd hoped we would get to. We didn't talk about sharing driving up with people to cut costs. What topics do you guys think we hadn't talked about, and what do you want to talk about now? I'll figure we'll go for another 10, 15 minutes, see if there are any more questions.
I think budgeting your shows is such an important thing. So this is a great thing to talk about. And now once you kind of develop your circuit of what shows you're going to, one of the advantages is that you eventually find out that you have friends that live in these cities, and you can always hit them up and see if you can stay there for free, and give them a pass to the show. And you can also try and one thing that I did last year that really helped me out and gave me a little bit of a cushion to handle to weather this storm is I'd racked up all these miles from flying over the years, and so I started using them, and my costs for flights went down dramatically, and just from that. And if you set up your credit card, your business credit card to United, which is what I did, you get miles every single time you use your credit card too. So I know my buddy Ted Sikora, he did that, and he got a ton of miles and was able to fly to certain shows just from that alone. So that always helps. Or you could buy your tickets right now because they're dirt cheap. You can fly to San Diego right now from Chicago. Normally it's $500. It's under $200 right now with tax included. Wow. So let the bad times roll out.
I think a lot of I think that planning for how you're going to get to a show is kind of dependent. If you're relying on it for a show-to-show basis, if you're not planning it out months in advance, sometimes you're going to be sitting there and going, "Hey, man, I'm struggling. I can't afford this right now because this show was supposed to be really good and it tanked miserably. This show was going to cover my bills in anticipation." As far as dealing with the actual travel, staying with people, I'll leave it at this. When you come out of a show, you've got to recharge. So you work with what works for you. We occasionally have 4 people in a room because it's too expensive, for anybody to logistically be in an area. I did San Diego Comic-Con one time. I did an event across from it, and one night at a Motel 6, 15 miles away, was $400. And it was literally just for one night's sleep, and was possibly one of the worst nights of sleeping I've ever had. But then in other situations, you can find Airbnbs and things like that. If you're traveling with other people, I say just make sure that these are people that you're going to be able to put up with like family in a small conditioned area, that they're peccadillos after a while. Hey, it's going to take them this long. For some reason, this guy's always going to get up at 5 a.m. and take an hour-long shower, and just let it go. Like some people we know. No, I'm kidding. It's not an hour-long shower, but for, my
6 a.m., 7 a.m. Come on.
Yeah. It depends on the time zone. But, that, hey, they're going to want to go and get this. I need coffee first thing in the morning. He needs protein first thing in the morning. He needs a mixed sandwich of some kind.
Need some eggs, man. Need
some eggs and bacon. We got to keep our routines. As far as cost for actual shows, I think it would just be practical to acknowledge that every single show is going to be a minimum of $700 minimum. And if you don't think you're going to be able to make $700 with your own levels of self-confidence or product or whatever have you for those shows, at a bare minimum, then you really shouldn't do the show. You should go, nah, I'm good. The goal of every Comic-Con is bare minimum to do double what your costs are.
And depending on where you're setting up too, like if you're in an artist alley or in small press, Small press is like your prices. The price per exhibiting goes up like twice what an artist alley table is. But go on. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I perfectly sums up. Like some shows are going to cost you $1,400, and you're going to have to buy in bulk. You're going to have to be like, I need to buy prints now. I need to buy the table 2 weeks ago, and I need to buy, hotel and flights or gas travel, whatever have you, for that, as we get closer, because I can't afford it right now because I'm waiting on this show. Investing in shows every year, I would say argue, if you do this on a regular basis, is a minimum investment of around 12 grand. Just bare minimum costs of everything day-to-day living, have you. And that's not including like, okay, if you got to fly, or if you got to drive, or you got rent a car, or you got to buy new prints, or the extenuating aspects of being an artist. I think with what's going on with the con and things like that, people are going to figure out who they want to stay with and who they don't. The Diva High School element is occasionally you'll run into people who just want to, nurse you for information, kind of grill you, and be like, oh, so what's selling for you? And then next thing you know, next week they suddenly have a print of that thing. There's occasionally that. So you have to realize that if you're partnering up with people, sometimes it's just for a room, and then occasionally you're going to be sitting there and you're just like, nope, it's just us. It's literally just gonna be the two of us. I'm not having anybody else. And then you get to the show and there's 3 or 4 people that suddenly all of their people bailed on them. So you have to make a choice whether or not you want to inconvenience yourself, and by letting that person stay with you because somebody else screwed up.
Well, I'm too obnoxious. I can't get anybody to stay with me, so I pretty much just have to go.
You somehow convinced Cookie, Brian.
Yeah, I know, and you see how few shows she does with me. So, there's your clue right there, my friend. But no, and see that finger? Look out!
She's gonna hit you. She's gonna take that crate and hit you over the head.
The only reason she hasn't done it yet because I've got 4 witnesses right now. But anyway, but no, what I do to mitigate some of the costs, I've started using Airbnb. Before that, I was signing up whenever I stayed at a chain motel. I got the rewards that they offered. And I was using that. I was parlaying that into either cutting or completely eliminating a lot of my stay expenses. So I also, try to, cut corners in my supply without sacrificing how it looks. Like I mentioned, my coupon that I love dearly from Hobby Lobby or Joann's, however you want to use it. And it's one of those things where, because I grew up being told that, you mind your cents and the dollars will take care of themselves. And, you made a great point, Josh, about costs of cons. I don't do cons where I don't think I can at least make it back, whether it's in sales of product or some sort of networking that will help me later on. Networking is something that I think a lot of us don't think about that often, but it's been very advantageous to me. If nothing else, being told, okay, you want to do this show, no, you want to steer clear of this show, or here's the pitfalls you need to think about. So that's just little slices off of the expenses have been working pretty well for me so far.
And sometimes you can't plan for stuff. Like I just lost money on on Lexington. I just lost $300 because I booked it's not so much the table itself. It's the fact that I booked the hotel through hotels.com and no plug in this case.
Are you serious? They didn't refund you for
so the rate I got was apparently a special rate that was non-refundable regardless.
Oh, come on.
And I had
a lot of that happening now. Yeah.
I booked the room in advance, and then they were like, we're not accepting any kind of phone calls if it's not of the week of the actual event. I called for 3 days. The system was down the entire time for all 3 days. I did the online service. Nobody ever got back to me. So I'm out $300 automatically because I had to book a room for 3 people. But it's what it is, and life goes on. And yes, I am complaining about it because it's something that is officially coming to terms with for the next couple of days. But when Lexington happens, then I'm going to go to Lexington and I'm just going to plan to try and make that money back first thing. I just be like, all right, that covers the hole. Now let's go and cover the actual hole. You know, here's the pothole. That's next to nothing. I can do that. You know, but it's just sometimes you're not going to be able to plan. You're going to show up at the show and the hotel suddenly doesn't have room. You know, or parking is $40 a day. You know, these are events where, hey, suddenly you're like, you know what? Let's carpool. Let's everybody carpool. We're just all going to fit in one car and just make it work. You know,
and you know, going on that, it's like, you know, I got screwed over with Emerald City Comic Con because I had to ship everything out a week before the show. Yep. And of course, they waited until after I shipped everything out. And my rep told me, he goes, no matter what happens, the show's going to go on. Everything's going to be okay. Well, I was out, and then it canceled. Sure enough, so I was out $500 because it cost $250 to ship everything, and now $250 to ship it back, and then I have to spend another $250 to ship it back out there when the show hopefully happens in August. So you know, when that happened, it was a huge hit. But then I looked around and I was able to snag some freelance work, and that covered that loss. And I think when you have that hat on, of, you know, like, okay, I got this, I took this hit and it sucks. What can I do to like recoup it? How do I go in and rebound, you know, like, cause there's going to be spillage no matter what happens. And how does this relate to everything that goes on with, planning your comic conventions? Well, you know, you have to have that mindset all the time. Like what Brian was saying, like, you know, you look at your hotels and you try and get those points. And that's actually something I should look into. And, you know,
Glad to help.
Oh, of course, yeah. And you know, it's always looking for different options and different ways to survive. And if you have that thought process of how to, it's a survival instinct, and you'll always find ways to cut down on your costs. And you can be creative with it. Be as creative with that as you are with the actual creation of your book.
One of my good friends sleeps in a rental car a lot. So
yes, I know what you're talking about too.
He's
we all know each other.
He's finally admitting he's like, I'm having to buy bigger cars because I'm officially it's not working as much.
Is he still in his car right now, or did he find somewhere to shelter?
Oh no, it's not what you're talking about. No, we're talking about somebody else. He does he does watercolor stuff.
Yes, that's who I was talking about.
Oh yeah, no, he still does it. It's just now he's officially going and buying slightly better cars.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. His business has been good.
Renting better cars, yeah.
It's time for us to say goodbye. So one at a time, people where they can find you. Let's start with PKM.
Well, unaccustomed as I am talking about myself, go to risingtide.pub. That's my website. Also, it's my page on Facebook where we provide brand new content every day. Plus, on my personal page, I do 2 shows, actually 3 shows a week. Never mind the Furthermore at 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central, where we talk about what you want to talk about and allow you to promote your work, as well as, and I'm having it tonight in about an hour, Clever Title Pending. Yes, that is the title. I don't need any more suggestions. Thank you. At 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central, where we talk about creativity and the business behind it. Also, I have a monthly newsletter that if you go to the Rising Tide publication page on Facebook, you can sign up, or go to risingtide.pub, where I also hang out. I'm also on all the other cool social media. Please come find me. Thanks, Rob, for having me, as always.
Josh?
You guys can find me at Art of Josh Lyman on Instagram and Facebook, as well as briefly on Twitter. I don't really post my artwork on Twitter. We'll be migrating to doing some YouTube/Twitch videos later on the year with the same name. It just takes a little time to process all of that. I've started noticing since being on here, I've been getting a lot of requests from you guys for friendship. I really do appreciate that on Facebook. However, that's not where I post most of my art. I mostly cross share from there. So if you want to see art and all that, then go to there.
Hey, my name is Eric Hodson. I'm at Dreaded Dinosaur on all the social medias. And you can find my artwork at erichodson.com. I do a little bit of everything from anime to wrestling. Yes. And also, please subscribe to the Dreaded Dinosaur Man on Webtoon. I'm going to be updating that stuff again. And you guys built up to comic on Indiegogo this fall. So thank you very much.
Woot woot.
All right, guys, you can come and find me at yisunshin.com. That's www.yisonshin.com. Yisun Shin is about a Korean admiral that battled the Japanese in the 1500s. He was outnumbered 10-1 and beat them 23 times in a row. Never lost a single battle. We got excellent deals on our site right now. I cover your shipping costs. I sign everything for you. So once again, that's www.yisunshin.com. Rob, thank you so much for having me. What a wonderful guest list we had here today, and awesome conversation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys again. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
All right, guys. I wish we could stay longer, but everyone's got work to do. Thank you all for
Getting stuff done
and be a part of another amazing on-con panel. We're going to keep doing this at 4 p.m. every day for the foreseeable future, not the weekends. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure to check out the next one that we do tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern.